Ohio's governor made a reversal in his position on the death penalty this week as more than 100 inmates await their execution date in Ohio. But not everyone is following his lead. Here's Josh Krupp with Why It Matters.
Ohio Governor Mike DeWine grabbed national headlines this week when he publicly announced that he has reversed his position on the death penalty, decades after he helped write the law to allow capital punishment in Ohio.
It is today impossible to make the case that the death penalty is a deterrent.
DeWine called on the legislature to abolish the death penalty. But top GOP leaders in the legislature aren't supportive of ending capital punishment, and efforts to legalize new methods of execution haven't moved in the State House.
We have a pretty small minority of the legislature that would like to abolish capital punishment. That's fine. That's their right. But they're nowhere near the majority.
Anti-death penalty advocates are calling on DeWine to commute the sentences now of Ohio's death row inmates, something he declined to address this week. His newly appointed Attorney General Andy Wilson did say he's relieved the governor didn't commute any death sentences. And the Republican looking to become the state's next AG vowed to immediately implement constitutional methods of execution. Elsewhere on the campaign trail, with the candidates looking to be the next governor, Republican Vivek Ramaswamy has said he would allow executions to proceed in limited cases, and Democrat Amy Acton would continue DeWine's death penalty moratorium, she has said.
Reasonable people for centuries have come down on both sides of this issue.
DeWine has said he doesn't expect there to be any executions during his administration. And if he does not commute any sentences, the attention turns to 2027, when there are 11 executions scheduled, including Lucas County's Timothy Hoffner and Archie Dixon, who attacked and kidnapped a man before burying him alive. The governor still has time to decide whether these and other death row inmates spend the rest of their lives in prison or keep their execution dates on the books and put the onus on the next leaders to steer this debate. That's Why It Matters. Josh Krupp, 13 Action News.